Welcome to Astronomy Live, broadcasting tonight a very special event, the approach of Comet Siding Spring to Mars. I apologize up front for the road noise. I had to scramble to find an alternative site to set up the telescope tonight. My primary site was on a fishing pier, and on Thursday night they let me on it, no problem. Tonight, hilariously, they told me I wasn't allowed because I wasn't a fisherman. I'm like, well, I got a telescope. There's a really special event going on. They didn't care. Apparently, the guy on Thursday bent the rules for me a little bit because he thought it was cool. So props to him, and not so many props to the lady who didn't let me on the fishing pier tonight. So anyway, bottom line is that I'm now set up much closer to the road than I otherwise would be. And so there's going to be a lot of noise and stuff in the background. I'm like I said, I'm profusely sorry for that. Anyway, here, where I've got the mouse cursor, is Comet Siding Spring. And in the bottom corner, we have Mars. So, as we observe, tonight you're going to see the comet slowly get closer to Mars. Close approach is going to be at about 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow afternoon. So obviously we won't be able to see it from here in Florida at the moment of close approach because it'll be broad daylight. But we're definitely going to be observing tonight until we can't observe anymore. I've got a clear view of the western horizon here. So basically we'll just keep watching it for as long as we can. There goes another truck. Sorry about that. So we're running 2-minute exposures. And after the next exposure, we should see some degree of motion of the comet. So we'll actually be able to watch in real time as this comet approaches Mars and flies by it very closely. Now, it will be flying by further away than either of Mars's moons, Phobos and Deimos. But if this were the Earth-Moon system, it would be threading the needle between Earth and the Moon. In fact, it would be about only 1/3 the distance to the Moon if it were us. So it's a very close approach. Take it in, because this is probably the closest you'll ever see a long-period comet get to a planet in the solar system. Oh, I had a little bit of vibration or something there. Let me check the auto-guiding here. Seems to be running okay, but something definitely jolted that frame. Let me see what happens when it compensates for backlash. It might be overcompensating. Yeah, it's overcompensating. All right, I'm going to stop the images for a moment. And I'm going to tune down the backlash compensation. Oh, yeah, and that's why. I don't know why it keeps defaulting to 2.5 seconds. I keep telling it do 1.5, and it keeps redoing the setting on me. Okay, as soon as the auto-guiding resumes, we'll start taking images again. I'm very sort of casually polar aligned tonight. I was kind of in a hurry to get set up so we could start this webcast. In fact, I started a few minutes early. But if you miss anything, don't worry. The whole webcast will be available at the same link when it's done. I get a lot of questions about that. Are you going to save the video? It's automatically saved by YouTube. Very handy. So if you come back and revisit the link after the webcast, it'll automatically start from the beginning. Okay, the guiding looks pretty stable there. So we'll zoom back in. You can see all the stars look like they're double stars. Something, I think it's because it was overcompensating for backlash in the gears, and so it kept overshooting where it was trying to put the guide star back and forth. I might even go to 3-minute exposures if possible. We'll see how it goes. The comet does move fairly quickly, so I don't want to run it too long and then blur the comet. But for those of you just joining us, this is Comet Siding Spring up here. Apologies, it was blurred in the last frame. It should come out sharp in the next frame here in the next 45 seconds. But as we watch, the comet will be getting closer to Mars, and we're tracking with the stars here, not with the comet. So yeah, take this in, because this is a once in a lifetime long period comets go. It's really kind of exciting to me anyway, to be able to watch a comet approaching a planet in real time and see it happening. And get both in the same frame. That's delicious. Okay, here comes the next picture. Much better. So yeah, the comet didn't move much. I'm going to try cranking up the exposures more, because I can. Let's see here. Start auto-guiding. What do you think? 5 minutes? Nah. 3 minutes ought to be sufficient. All right, now I'm reaching my official start time. Some of you might be just joining now. Started a few minutes early, because why not? No, I kind of ran ahead of schedule a little bit, but it's a good thing I left myself some extra time, because I had to switch observing sites at the last possible second, which was not fun. So there's going to be a lot more road noise than I had planned on. So apologies about that, but at least I found a site with a clear view of the western horizon. So we'll be able to follow this event all the way until it sets, basically, or until atmospheric extinction makes the comet invisible, whichever comes first. It's a nice clear night, though, so we got that on our side. We got the weather. So if you're just joining us, the bright orangey thing down here, this is indeed the planet Mars. And up here is Comet Siding Spring. And so we'll be able to watch in real time as the comet approaches Mars. Of course, we won't be able to watch the actual moment of closest approach, because that will occur at about 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow afternoon, when it's daylight here. But we can watch the approach tonight, and tonight we can see both the comet and the planet in the same frame. This is basically the first night where that's been possible with my telescope, at least. And tomorrow night they'll be even closer together just after close approach. And if the weather remains good and everything goes well, then I'll try to webcast that as well. And we'll watch the comet depart from the planet. And that'll be tomorrow night at about the same time. So here we go. This will be the first 3-minute exposure. I don't want to expose so long that the comet's a complete blur. It is moving relatively quickly compared to the stars, so it will blur if you run exposures too long, but this is a pretty wide field of view. It's a wide field refractor here, so we can probably get away with 3 minutes at least. You want to kind of balance the exposure length so you get a good signal, a good brightness of the image against the fact that the comet's moving, so that you can hopefully get the comet and the planet sharply together. At least that's the idea. Okay, now it's going to run a 3-minute dark frame and do an auto dark subtraction. Now, ultimately, these pictures will be put together into a time-lapse video. I don't know when I'll have time to get around to processing all that. It does take a bit of time, and right now the priority is simply capturing these images, of course, especially tonight, tomorrow night. So I don't know, I can't promise that I'll have time to do that before tomorrow night, but eventually the processed and calibrated images will be posted as a time-lapse video. And what you're going to see is that the comet here is actually moving kind of down this way, and Mars, you'll actually be able to see it moving too, and it'll be moving this way. And they're coming to a common point of intersection somewhere around here, where they'll meet tomorrow afternoon. So, if you're wondering, all these colorful pixels here, the red pixels, the blue pixels, the green pixels, these are all hot pixels. And right now the camera's taking a dark frame. It's closed its internal shutter, and it's just exposing a dark frame for 3 minutes that will then be subtracted from this image, and it'll clear all that up. And then we'll start imaging again with fresh images of the comet. Of course, because the dark frame will have occurred, 6 minutes will have elapsed since the start of the previous exposure instead of the usual 3. So there will be a bit of a jump in the time lapse, and oh dear, might have lost the auto guider there. Yeah, because the shutter was closed, and for some reason the auto guider took a shot. Hopefully, okay, now we got the dark frame subtracted. That looks good. There we go. Okay, we got the auto guider back. Good. Alright, that all seems to be well. Okay, so now you can see all the hot pixels are gone. So that's good. No, I want to zoom in more than that. I was thinking maybe I should zoom out a little bit, get a wider view, but really we want to see the comet as close as possible in Mars, because the comet is quite small in the grand scheme of things, especially at this angle of this wide angle view. Make sure I am auto saving. Okay. Yeah, so the comet, for those of you who might have joined us a little late, will be passing close to Mars, but not as close as Phobos or Deimos, the moons of Mars. It will pass closer than our moon is to us, so if this were the Earth-Moon system, it would be threading that needle, and in fact it would be closer to us than to the moon. So it is quite a close approach, and it is probably the closest approach of a long-period comet to a planet that you'll ever see. You might remember the Schumacher-Levy 9 impact on Jupiter back in the 90s, and that was actually from a comet that had been orbiting Jupiter for a while before impact, and before that it was a short-period comet. But this is a long-period comet from the Oort cloud, and it's actually traveling the wrong way around the solar system, in a manner of speaking. If it were to hit Mars, it would be a head-on collision at incredible velocity. And at first we couldn't tell whether or not it was going to hit Mars, and I actually did a video about that some time ago. But now we've determined that it is going to safely miss Mars by a good margin, and will not be impacting the planet directly. However, the atmosphere of the comet, the coma that surrounds it, will be enveloping the Martian atmosphere. It will collide with the Martian atmosphere, and it remains to be seen exactly what the effects are going to be, but we think that it will actually heat the upper atmosphere of Mars a little bit by about 30 Kelvin, and also double the hydrogen content. The bottom line of all this is that our probes orbiting Mars right now are actually going to experience increased orbital drag, and so they might have to reboost themselves more often than would otherwise be the case. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Some of the Ah, yeah, I was able to tell Mars moved there. I wasn't really looking at the comet, but I bet that visibly moved too. So the comet's up here, and Mars is down here, and Mars is moving this way. Comet's moving kind of down this way, and they're coming to a common point of intersection around here somewhere. So as I was saying, yeah, so we've got several probes orbiting Mars. One of them, our newest arrival, MAVEN, is actually specifically designed to study the Martian atmosphere. So it's going to get front row seats on how the comet's atmosphere affects Mars's atmosphere. It's going to be really interesting to see those results. The Curiosity rover, sitting on the red planet right now, actually has the exact same CCD that you're seeing being used here. The same CCD model as my telescope uses, Kodak KAI 2020 CM. It's a one-shot color CCD, and Curiosity has one as well, and it will be attempting to observe the comet. So it's kind of cool to think that my telescope's camera and the Mars rover camera, which is the same CCD as my camera, will actually be studying the same object from all the way over there in Mars. And that's just, I don't know, it's kind of cool to me to think about that. But in any case, hopefully we get some good images out of it, but I wouldn't hold your breath on stunning, you know, spectacular images where you're expecting to see a huge coma and tail all across the Martian sky, because Curiosity's camera is not really designed to do astrophotography. You know, they're going to try their best, but it wasn't built with that in mind. It was built to do shorter exposures of the daylit Martian surface and rocks and everything else. So I don't know what the noise profile is really going to look like. Even though it's the exact same type of CCD, there's a lot more to it than just the CCD component. This one's being actively cooled to -5 degrees Celsius, and of course the electronics are also specifically designed to not induce any noise, or at least the least amount of noise possible on the CCD, electronic interference from amp glow, things like that. It was specifically built and tailor-built to do long exposure astrophotography. Curiosity rover's mast cam was not, so I'm not super hopeful that we're going to see, you know, a massive coma of the comet in the Martian night sky, because it's not going to be all that bright. It is, the total brightness is quite a lot, but it's spread out over a huge area of the sky, and so most likely you're not going to be able to see most of that. You can think of it the same way that Andromeda appears in our sky. The Andromeda galaxy is actually bigger in our sky than the full moon, considerably so, but we can't see most of it with our naked eyes, even though we can see it. And that's because of the relatively dim surface brightness compared to other objects. So there's that. There's also the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and it will be studying the comet as it flies by, and it will be trying to resolve the physical nucleus. And so that will actually be a first, as far as I know. No other probes, no other telescopes or anything have ever resolved the physical nucleus of a long period comet from the Oort cloud. We've, of course, visited numerous short period comets, but these long period comets from the Oort cloud are a little bit different. And because, you know, we don't find out about them until a year or two before they arrive, it's not really practical to send probes to them. It would take a lot more energy to get them into an orbit around the comet. We have, you know, European Space Agency currently has a probe orbiting a comet right now, 61P, but that's a little bit different because it's a short period comet, so you can get into the same orbit as the comet with a reasonable amount of delta V, change in velocity, reasonable amount of fuel. It would take a lot more to get into the same orbit as a long period comet for obvious reasons. And in addition to that, we don't get much warning before they arrive, so that doesn't leave you much time to design, build, and execute a mission. So this will be a first if this pans out, and that'll be really cool. We currently think that the comet's physical nucleus is somewhere around 700 meters in size, so we'll see how well those predictions hold up to the MRO observations. But MRO, again, it won't really get a good view of the coma and tail of the comet. I think our best views of that are actually going to come from ground-based telescopes, looking at the situation from a distance. So we'll see. The main point of view here tonight is simply to provide a live view of the motion of this comet and Mars as they approach each other. And you can kind of tell, it's kind of cool. You know, as you're watching, you can kind of tell, you know, this comet is coming head on at Mars. It's not catching up to Mars from behind. Oh no. Oh no, they're coming to a common point of intersection, almost like a head-on collision, and they're just going to miss. And that's, I tell you what, this is really neat. It's not every day you get to see something this dynamic occurring in the sky. So the next exposure will come in the next 25 seconds, and if you watch here, you'll see the comet, and hopefully we'll see it move a little bit. Yep, I could tell it moved about 1 pixel. Maybe a little more, but just about 1 pixel. So that's good. So we've got a good exposure because it moves with every frame visibly, but it doesn't blur. It's not really elongated by its own motion. So I think that's got it pretty good. So yeah, enjoy the view. I'm going to mute the mic because I think these car noises are probably getting pretty annoying to listen to on your end, I bet. So I'm going to mute the mic and let you just enjoy the serene view. yeah, I'm going to leave the cursor right here at the comet, so I'll keep it pointed at the comet. So if you come back later and you forget where the comet is or whatever, it's going to be right here. In fact, oh, I can do that. I didn't know I could do that. I don't know what that does, but I hope it doesn't do anything to it, to the program, I mean. Because this is actually the acquisition program controlling the camera and everything. But, hey, I can highlight it with a box. Oh, that's handy. Now everyone will know. It's good. I don't have to keep coming on the mic and reminding people, you know, for people just joining, where the comet is. It's right there in the box. Okay. Well, that makes life easier. Learn something new every day. I didn't know this program could do that. But anyway, yeah, I think the traffic noise is just horrendous. At least it sounds horrendous to me, but yeah, not ideal. If you came in late, the reason there's traffic noise is because I am parked next to a road, unfortunately. I was going to be on a fishing pier, but they didn't let me on the fishing pier. They said it was for fishermen only. They didn't want a guy with a telescope on the pier. Didn't have a problem with it Thursday night, but the lady there tonight, she wasn't having any of it. Like, lady, there's a major event going on Mars. It's really rare. Please. Nope. It's like, come on. I was going to pay for a pass. You know, I didn't care. I'll pay for the fishing pass, whatever, to come on the pier. I don't mind. I'll pay the money, but just let me on. No. I don't know. Is there like a fishing union that, like, controls that pier? Maybe a fishing mafia that's got to lock down and no one but fishermen on the pier. Okay. Whatever. Anyway, so I had to scramble to find a new site, and this is what I found. And at least it's got the key is it's got a clear view of the western horizon, so that we can follow the comet all the way down, because this is quite low over the horizon. It's kind of challenging to observe it. But from this location, we can follow it basically until it sets. So that's why I'm here. I was willing to compromise on the road noise to be able to at least see it. So that's the story there. All right, here comes the next picture. There it is. Guess I'm going to have to keep redrawing the box, but that's fine. Also, you'll have to pardon me for a minute because I'm going to bring up Deep Sky Stacker window, which is going to block the view of CCD Soft temporarily. And I'm just going to start dumping the pictures that we've been taking into Deep Sky Stacker so that I can keep tabs on how it's doing. Because with Deep Sky Stacker, I can adjust the contrast a little bit and just get a better idea of what I'm really seeing in terms of the raw files. These are 16-bit images. They're high-bit depth images, so we can't view all the dynamic range on a standard monitor natively. So CCD Soft just tries to do its best at enhancing the contrast and letting you see what's in the image, but it doesn't always tell you the whole story, so I just want to see what it looks like in Deep Sky Stacker. Oh, it looks gorgeous. Yeah, in fact, when I stack these pictures, I think we might actually get a much better view of the tail of the comet. I can really start to get a sense of it anyway from looking at the pictures in DSS. I'm pretty sure we'll see it once we stack the images, but that'll all occur in post-processing. Looks gorgeous. I mean, even in CCD Soft, you can kind of see there's a bit of fuzziness to the right, and that's going to be the tail of the comet. It's hard to see here, but as I said, it'll be much easier to see it. Okay, okay, so I'm getting a lot of comments that people love the swooshing noises, and they want me to leave the sound on. Alright, well, as long as it's not annoying anyone. So, if you're joining us late, we're looking at Comet Siding Spring. It's going to be highlighted right here in this white box, and then down in the bottom is the planet Mars. And if you watch over time, you'll see that both are actually moving. Mars is moving kind of up and to the right a little bit, and the comet's moving down and to the left. And they're going to come to a common point of intersection somewhere around here tomorrow afternoon. And just so you know, I know I scheduled this webcast to last 1 hour, so that would be till 9:30. And unless something catastrophic happens with the weather or something, then I know I can at least follow it till then based on observing it on Thursday night. But we'll go as long as the view will allow us to. As it gets closer and closer to the horizon, the atmosphere is actually going to dim it, just like it would dim the sunset or anything else. And at some point, we might kind of start to lose sight of the comet, if not Mars. But we'll keep following it as long as we can. It will set sometime, I want to say sometime around 10:15. Let me check. What time does the comet set? Okay, so the comet actually sets at 10:24, almost 10:25 p.m. Eastern Time. And I can follow it almost all the way down because I've got almost a completely clear shot of the horizon here. So if we continue to see it just fine until then we'll just watch until then. I mean, this is a rare opportunity, so we'll just keep following it as long as we can. So yeah, 9:30 is not a hard cutoff time. We'll go an extra hour if possible. Yeah, pardon me, I'm just pulling up the latest images into Deep Sky Stacker again. I'm just making sure that drawing that box is not interfering with anything, because I realize now that that actually is the same thing you do to go into subframe mode and just look at a piece of the image and only record that piece. But it does seem to be continuing to record the entire image, so I don't think it's interfering with anything. If I stopped the run, then it would start the next run shooting with that subframe mode on, but as long as I don't stop the run, it'll continue recording the entire image. guessing it keeps overshooting on the backlash there. Hope this picture comes out okay. Might need to turn down the backlash compensation some more. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, looks okay. Leave well enough alone, I guess. So I'm getting some comments that indicate that some of you might be just joining us, so I'll just cover the basics here real quick again. We're looking at Comet Siding Spring as it's approaching Mars. It's the fuzzy spot here highlighted by the white box. If you look closely, you can kind of tell it's fuzzier on the right side than the left side, and that's because of the tail. The tail of the comet is actually pointing in that direction. The comet's approaching Mars, which is down here in the bottom. And Mars is moving, if you watch over time from image to image, Mars is moving slowly to the right. The comet is moving slowly down this way. And so they're going to meet at a common point of intersection around here. And the comet's going to just miss Mars by about 140,000 kilometers or so, which, if this were the Earth-Moon system, that's between the Earth and the Moon. In fact, that's considerably closer to us than the Moon. It's about 1/3 the distance to the Moon. So it's going to be a close approach, probably the closest approach of a long period comet from the Oort cloud to a planet in the solar system you will ever see in your lifetime. So it's quite special, really. Basically, you're not going to see this again, probably, at least of a long period comet like this. So the comet's up here, and Mars is down here, and we're just watching it. Just watching it happen live here. So the close approach will actually be at about 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow afternoon. Obviously, that will be during the day here in Florida, so we won't be able to see it from here in the States. In fact, it's really tricky to even see this right now because it's quite low in the southwest. And so you really have to have a clear view of your western sky all the way down the horizon to really be able to see this for any length of time. We'll continue following it here. It will set sometime at about 10:24, according to Sky Safari Pro on my phone. And basically, I think we should be able to follow it until about then. At some point, looking through all the atmosphere, it might start to dim it out to the point that we can't see the comet anymore. I don't know exactly when that will happen, but it's possible. we'll just continue following it for as long as we can here. So I'm running 3-minute exposures, so every 3 minutes the image is updated. And if you watch closely, you will see the comet move with every single picture. It'll just move about 1 pixel or so down this way. If you're wondering why there are 2 blue bars, the upper blue bar indicates the exposure of the main imaging CCD, and the lower blue bar is for the auto-guiding CCD, which is updating every 4 seconds and keeping the telescope centered on a star. So if you're wondering whether you can see this yourself, you can see Mars quite easily by the naked eye. If you live in the eastern US right now, it's still above the horizon, but it's getting quite low. Just eyeballing it here, I'd say it's about maybe 15 degrees or less above my horizon right now. And it's out there in the west, and it's just kind of a red star. It doesn't really twinkle as much as the other stars. It's kind of how you can easily tell that it's a planet. But the comet is much too dim to be seen by eye. I looked for it in my telescope, which is an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain, earlier tonight, and I don't know, I think maybe I saw it. It was really difficult for me. Now, I am looking here through a lot of light pollution based on where I am, and that's really going to be the case pretty much throughout the Florida coastline. When you get to the coastline, you're going to get to a lot of property where there's a lot of people because everyone wants to live on the coast, right? So there's a lot of light pollution here, but I think I kind of saw it in the eyepiece, but I could really only see it when I was moving the telescope, and I could perceive the motion of a small, faint blur about where it should be, but it's really iffy. I can't definitively say I saw it. So you really need a decent-sized telescope, I think, to see it. It's predicted to be about magnitude 10 according to JPL in terms of total magnitude, but that's spread out over the area of the comet. And really, observers have been reporting it around magnitude 13 in some cases, so it might even be dimmer than the prediction. So it's really not impressive as a comet goes. It's not all that bright. What makes it special is simply the fact that it's passing so close to Mars. So the easiest way to see it is this way, by taking long exposure images. So these images are 3 minutes long, and so the camera, of course, is integrating a lot more light than what the eyes can do. The eye, your eye is instantly processing whatever light it receives, whereas the camera can build it over a long period of time. And that's really the easiest way to see this. So you're actually looking here with an 80mm refractor, so it's not that big. In fact, it's about the same size as a lot of people's first telescope, but it's a nice little wide field refractor. But with this camera, exposing for 3 minutes, you can see it there pretty easily in the image. So that's the story there. The reason I'm using the wide field refractor is because the main telescope, the Schmidt-Cassegrain, can't actually fit this in the view. The field of view of the main telescope, if I could draw the box here, is it's close, but it won't quite fit. It would be, in fact, really, it's just basically a little less than the distance between the comet and Mars in terms of the width of the field of view. And so you just can't quite fit it in. If this were happening, if I were a little bit further west and we were, say, an hour or 2 hours later into this event, then I could just maybe barely fit Mars on one side of the image and then the comet on the extreme other side of the image in the main telescope. But the wide field refractor can get it quite easily. We're zoomed in here, but the entire field of view of the telescope looks more like this. So you can see it here. So yeah, you can get an idea here. We're easily fitting in the comet and Mars into the to the telescope's field of view. Not a problem. But with the main scope, that's just not yet possible. Tomorrow night, after the close approach, will only be a few hours after close approach, and the comet and Mars will actually be closer together than what you see here tonight. And so as a result of that, I can and will actually try to capture Mars and the comet together through the main telescope, the Schmidt-Cassegrain. But tonight, that's just not quite doable, unfortunately. But it's okay. We've got a pretty decent view here with the wide field refractor. Also, I don't know how easily it's showing up, but I should point out, if you've noticed a couple of what look like black holes here in the center, these are just dust motes on the CCD that are blocking the light. So that's why that's there. When the images are fully calibrated with flat fields, that will get subtracted out. So again, at some point I promise, I will stack and process these images, but it may not happen right away because the priority, of course, is capturing them, and tomorrow night's going to be basically just a specialist tonight because they're still going to be very close together, even closer than now, even though it'll be after close approach. So my priority is to get back out here tomorrow night if the weather's still clear. It should be. I think it should be. But we've had a few straight days of just beautiful weather here since about Thursday. And Thursday night I did the first test run of this and posted the video you might have seen. I think I'm getting even better views here tonight. But Sunday night, hopefully the weather holds and we can do this again. And if at all possible, I will. But because of that, I simply won't have time probably to process these images until after Sunday night. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll find the time, but I'm not counting on it. So, in the meantime, just enjoy the view here of Comet Siding Spring approaching Mars. Again, I'm just going to keep highlighting the comet here with the white box. Mars really needs no highlight. You can see it quite easily down there. I think someone asked in the comments where the sun was in relation to this, and the rule of thumb is that a comet's tail basically, with a few exceptions, always points away from the sun. If it's rounding around the sun, it might take some time to reorient, but you can kind of see the tail's pointing this way, so the sun's basically the opposite direction that way. And if you're wondering, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. You're right, it doesn't seem right, because you're looking here with a view that is rotated 180 degrees from the true orientation. And there are reasons I do that. Actually, I could rotate the camera 180 degrees to face so that you're seeing it at the correct orientation physically. But if I did that, then the cables and stuff on the access port of the camera would start to bump into the eyepiece in the main telescope, and it'd be a mess. So it's easier to orient the camera this way because it gives me more clearance to work with. So that's why it's upside down. So someone asked me where Phobos and Deimos are in this picture. You can't actually see them, unfortunately. Deimos, I'm not sure exactly where to look for. It doesn't appear to be showing up in my planetarium program on my phone, but Phobos is just emerging from behind Mars, I think, or is it in front of it? No, I'm sorry, it's just going behind Mars now. But it's basically right on the limb, right at the edge of Mars. You can't really see it. It's just lost in the glare here, but it would be about here if you could see it. I mean, it would be right touching Mars right now. And it's lost in the glare. I doubt you'll see it at all in the stacked pictures or anything. Unfortunately, I do have to overexpose Mars to show the comet, so Mars isn't actually solid white or anything. It's just the result of overexposing and running these 3-minute-long pictures, which are necessary to bring out the comet as much as possible. So comet up there, and again, I'm going to just keep highlighting it with this white box, and then Mars down here. And as we watch, the two will get closer, slowly. Of course, we won't be able to see closest approach, but still we can see them closing in on each other right now in the same field of view. It's really cool. I'm glad, really glad the weather cooperated and that we can see this tonight, because I've been looking forward to this for months. If you want to see this yourself, I mean, it is visible right now. Mars is visible in the sky. The comet, of course, is much too dim to see by naked eye. You really need a pretty good sized telescope to pick it out. Or, again, as I said before, the easiest way to do it is photography this way. Though this type of photography is not easy in any sense of the word. But anyway, the planet Mars right now is just a little under 11 degrees above the horizon at my location, so it's pretty low there in the southwest. So you really need a clear view of the west to be able to see it. And normally it wouldn't take too long to stack a picture of something, but here the situation's a little bit different, because we've got a fairly dynamic situation here. The comet's moving and Mars is moving, over the course of this imaging session, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to do this. I have a routine down for stacking comets, but what do you do when there's two things moving in two different directions? This comet is traveling basically opposite the direction of the planets in the solar system, so they're not even traveling the same way in the image. They're coming at each other. And so how do you stack that? Because if you align it on the stars, then you're going to blur both the comet and Mars. If you align it on the comet, you're going to blur the stars and Mars. If you align it on Mars, sorry about that, your car is going by. If you align it on Mars, you're going to blur the stars and the comet. So there's a little bit of a technical difficulty just in trying to get a clean picture where everything looks sharp. So I'm going to try some things. I think I kind of know how I'll do it. We'll see how it works. I'm going to have to come up with 3 different stacks. One aligned on the stars, one aligned on the comet, and one aligned on Mars, and try to composite all of them into a single picture. And that will be the final processed image, I think. So it's going to take some time. I've never done that before. So that's why I can't promise I'll be able to do that before tomorrow night, because I'm going to have to kind of be feeling my way around and how to process these images. But I think it'll look really pretty when it's done. We've now got A little less than an hour left until the comet sets, and Mars for that matter. But again, we'll just keep following as long as I can. I know I set the webcast to be 1 hour, so that would put us at 9:30, but I will not be ending at 9:30 unless Google like kicks me out or something. I think we're still running good here. Yeah, I think we are. So I'll just keep webcasting for as long as I can until they set. There's the next picture. It's nice and solid. That's something I do want to point out real quick, is the fact that Mars and the comet here are in the constellation Ophiuchus. That's right, during the doors then. They're basically right between Sagittarius and Scorpius. Yep, it's an Ophiuchus. So it's right in the middle of the Milky Way. Can't really see the Milky Way all that well here because we're looking through, a fair bit of light pollution, and it's really low over the horizon here, about 10 degrees above the horizon. But if you look carefully, you can perceive that, there's a lot of stars here, and there's a little bit of glow to it. I mean, there's just kind of a, milky appearance, I guess you'd say, right around here. And this is actually part of the Milky Way that you're looking at. Yeesh, I can tell I'm really going to need to take some flat fields here, too. There's also a fair bit of dust motes and stuff here and here and here. Some of that's because of the way that I think we're getting light pollution as we're getting lower, so it kind of lights up the dust on the CCD, I think. So anyway, but let me zoom back in here so we can see the comet really well. But I just wanted to point that out, that actually, this is actually occurring in a really interesting part of the sky as well. It's not just in the boring middle of nowhere, it's actually right here in the Milky Way. And I don't expect that my images are going to be the best you're going to see of this event necessarily, but at least they are coming to you live. You're actually able to see the comet and Mars in motion here in real time. But guys who are in the southern hemisphere have a better view of this than we do in the northern hemisphere. And if you use itelescope.net, you can rent time on telescopes located in the southern hemisphere at Siding Spring, as a matter of fact. The same location where the comet was actually discovered, which is kind of cool. And you can command the telescope to observe this event and get yourself some image data of it. And I know a lot of big-name astrophotographers are going to be doing that. They're already reserved time for their scopes there in the southern hemisphere. I have actually reserved some time myself, just a little bit of time, on a big scope that's down there in Siding Spring. So if the weather is good in Australia, I should get a few minutes of images at least, just a few hours before close approach. And I'll post a link to that in the video description of this video, if that comes out okay. But guys like Damien, I think his name's Damien Peach. I hope I got that right. Sorry, Damien, if I misremembered your name. Yeah, he's a real well-known astrophotographer. Posts awesome pictures of all kinds of comets. And I know I'm pretty sure he's got some time reserved on the scopes down there already. So I know he'll be posting some great shots of it as well. And I'm sure that that'll get published all around the web as usual. But I'm just doing what I can here with my own scope from my rather miserable position in the northern hemisphere here to try to see this. I mean, the reason why that is an inferior position is because the declination of Mars right now is negative 24 degrees 50 arc minutes. I mean, almost negative 25 degrees. So you're really better off in the southern hemisphere. It would be much higher in the sky for you. But yeah, this is kind of nice because we can watch the motion of the comet in real time, and I'm hogging the scope, but it's just my scope, so I can do that. So yeah, if you're just joining us and wondering what the heck is going on here, we're looking at Comet Siding Spring. Again, I'm just going to keep it highlighted here with this white box so you can see where it is. If you look, you can kind of see there's a bit of haze there on the right side. That's the tail of the comet, at least the start of it. And Mars is down here. Mars is kind of moving this way progressively in each image. The comet is moving this way in each image, and eventually they're going to meet around here. And that meeting will occur at about 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow afternoon. And right now we're just watching it happen, watching them close in on each other. So I think someone asked me the other day whether Mars's gravity would affect the orbit of the comet, and the answer is yes, actually, it will. Now, of course, that's already taken into account by professional software, JPL's horizons. If you generate predictions for where the comet's going to be, that's already taken into account. The little Java applet on the JPL website that most people use doesn't take planetary perturbations into account. It just uses two-body methods, and it actually has a disclaimer on the website. It says right there, do not use me for planetary encounter circumstances, and that's why the gravity of Mars is affecting the comet's orbit. On my planetarium program on my phone, the orbital elements for the comet, the Keplerian elements, of October 7th, and so that's essentially the moment in time for where those elements are valid. If you use a two-body type calculation and you calculate it for that moment in time, it's valid. Beyond that, it's no longer valid if you don't account for the perturbations. And so the phone's program is fairly simplistic. It just takes, it's like the Java applet. It uses two-body methods on the comet. And so it doesn't take into account the perturbations that Mars has made since then to that orbit. And actually, the comet's position is slightly different than where the phone predicts it to be. Not hugely. I mean, you can still use it to find the comet, but it is a little bit different than where the phone expects it to be. If you go online to JPL Horizons and find out where it is supposed to be based on planetary perturbations, you find out the answer comes out a little bit different than what the phone says. So that's kind of interesting. So it does matter. Mars's gravity does matter, and it will affect the orbit of the comet. But that's already accounted for. And the comet isn't coming anywhere near Earth or anything like that afterwards, so it's not a risk for impact to us or anything. And now we know it's not a risk to impact Mars either. But you know, actually, when we first discovered it, we didn't know that right away. looked like there was at least about a 1 in, I think, 1,250 chance of impact, which, you know, that's still low odds, but that's a lot better than winning the lotteries, you know. So it was possible, not likely, but possible that it could have hit Mars when we first discovered it, before we had extensive amount of astrometric data to calculate the orbit. But now that we've been observing it for, you know, much longer, we know that it's not going to hit the planet. But it will be passing very close. I'm sorry. I'm laughing just because, well, you probably heard the music going by. People tend to give me very strange looks when they see this telescope sitting here. And that was no exception just now. You know, this is an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain is the main scope. And right now you're actually looking through an 80mm refractor riding piggyback on top of that scope. So it's a rather complicated configuration. It doesn't look like what most people think of when they think of the word telescope, you know. So they see it and they don't necessarily know what it is. And like I said, they tend to give me pretty strange looks. That's all I'll say. Oh, somebody asked an excellent question. Is this true color? And the answer is yes, it is. It's a one-shot color camera, just like any consumer camera you would buy. It has pixels. Each pixel is dedicated for a specific color, red, green, or blue. And so it's in a matrix pattern that, when decoded, produces a color image that you see. And that's basically how all consumer cameras work. And so it is actually true color. Just a visible light image here. There's a little bit of false color fringing around some of the brighter stars because this is just an achromat. It's not well corrected for chromatic aberration, so there's a little bit of purple fringing in some cases and stuff around stars. But in general, the colors you're seeing are true color. Mars, of course, bright sort of orange. They call it the red planet, but really it's more orangish, sort of. And you can clearly see that. The comet's very faint by comparison, so it's harder to perceive any color. We might see color a lot better once I stack the images. You know, stacking it over a long period of time will tend to average out the noise and bring out the signal more, and we'll be able to get a better idea of the color in that, I think. Got 22 images here, or sorry, 21 collected so far, going on 22. So let's see, that's 66 minutes. If I did the math right in my head, I can't think right now. Yeah, going on 66 minutes of light, so that'll be good. That should produce a decent image. Again, I'm going to have some interesting challenges stacking it because we've got two objects moving in the field of view, and they're moving in different directions. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to produce about 3 stacks, I think, and then composite them together to make a clean-looking image. yeah, so what was the other question? There's some other question I saw somebody was asking. Oh, no, somebody said I should clean my lens. Yeah, okay, so there's dust motes on the CCD, but you know what? First rule of CCD is do no harm, and besides, getting into the CCD chamber means that I'd have to rebake the desiccant plug again, and it's not a big deal, but it does take 4 hours of baking, and it's just I have trouble finding the time to do that. To sit there and babysit it for 4 hours with the oven going. Excuse me, and in any case, it's I don't like opening up the CCD chamber. It's a pain in the butt. When humidity gets in there, you have to get the humidity back out because the CCD here is being cooled to sub-freezing temperatures. So if there's any humidity in the chamber, it will form ice crystals on the CCD. Or, you know, at the very least, condensation as it starts to approach those temperatures. So you have to remove the humidity. There's a desiccant plug in the camera that does that, but it gets saturated pretty easily. So if you open up the chamber, chances are you're going to saturate the desiccant plug, have to rebake it, put it back in the camera, let it sit for a while, hopefully get all the humidity out. And even if it does, you've already now partially saturated your desiccant plug, so you're going to have to rebake it again in the near future. That happened with me. Like, this camera's fairly new to me. I've had it now for I think about 6 months or so, and I've already had to rebake it once because it took several cycles of baking to get all the humidity out of the camera when I first got it. And that last cycle took it out, but it probably, you know, partially saturated the plug to a good extent because it was still getting rid of the last of that humidity. And so it 6 months later started getting frost on the CCD again, so I had to rebake it. So now it's back to normal, and I think it should last now for over a year. According to the manual for the camera, it says the plug should last for a year before requiring rebaking. But that's assuming that it was pretty much fully dehumidified when you last baked it. So if I open up the CCD chamber, that's not going to be the case anymore. And especially here in Florida, we got a lot of humidity, plenty of that going around. So then I'd have to go through probably several baking cycles to get all the humidity back out. And then I'd be in the same boat again where 6 months later it'd probably fully saturate, and then I'd have to do it all over. It's just, you get the idea. It's a pain. It's a real pain. Because when you have to do several cycles, it's 4 hour baking, then it's another few hours of letting it sit, soak up as much as it can, then another 4 hours of baking. So it takes multiple days, and you can end up losing some clear nights that way. I just hate that. I hate having to sacrifice a clear night because I'm sitting at home, baking the plug. And that's why actually they do make third-party modifications that use disposable desiccants. And this camera that I bought actually came with one of those. And I tried it, it didn't work. It just stunk on ice. But I think maybe the disposable desiccant charges it came with were already expired by the time I got it. So, chances are if I bought some fresh ones, I'd be okay. And, at first I didn't see the reason for it. Like, why would you use disposables? Because you keep having to buy more, whereas the rechargeable one, you just get to reuse it. But, I can see the attraction why, because you stuff that in there. If it gets saturated, you just stuff a new one in. You don't have to wait around for it to bake. And especially if you're out in the field, if you're, at a star party somewhere and you can't rebake it, well, what are you going to do if it saturates while you're there? You're going to be up the creek if you don't have access to an oven, because you have to bake this thing in, 350 degrees, something like that. So, I can see the attraction at least as a backup option while you're out in the field. But no, I wasn't able to get that one to work simply because the disposable charges are all useless, it seems. So probably try to get some more of those though before I go to Chiefland and find myself in the field, and then because Murphy's Law will happen, and that'll be when it strikes again, and I'll have to rebake it, and I won't be able to. Anyway, It's probably way more of an explanation than anyone wanted, but there it is. So, anyway, back to the comet. Again, I'll just keep highlighting it here. If you're late joining us, Comet Siding Spring is visible in these images. It's right here in the center of the white box. Mars is down here, and they're slowly getting closer together. The comet's moving down this way. If you watch carefully when each picture comes in, you'll see that the comet moves down a little bit, and Mars moves a little bit to the right. And eventually they'll meet somewhere around here. The comet will at a distance of about 140,000 kilometers or so, and that will happen at 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow afternoon. So I'm observing it tonight until it sets. That will happen in about 40 minutes or so. And I'll keep following it until then. And then tomorrow night after the close approach, if the weather remains good, I'll set her up again, and we'll try to view the comet next to Mars. It'll be even closer to Mars tomorrow night because it'll be just past close approach. And that means I'll be able to fit it in the field of view of the Schmidt-Cassegrain, the main telescope. We're looking here with the wide field refractor because it wouldn't fit in the field of view of the main telescope. The main telescope's width of the field of view is just a little bit less than the distance between the comet and Mars right now. So that necessitated the wide field refractor for tonight, because it's really cool to be able to see. It's really cool to be able to see it here moving with Mars, both of them in the same field of view at once. This is a very, very rare opportunity to see a long period comet getting this close to a planet, and actually getting this close to a planet in real space, not just an apparent conjunction between the two, but a physical conjunction as well. And apologies again for the road noise. I think I'm getting occasionally drowned out by it. Even as it's getting later, it sounds like it's getting noisier. I don't think it's because the traffic's getting worse. I think it's just because people are getting dumber. It seems like they're accelerating harder or driving faster, blaring more music or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It just sounds like it's getting louder as the night wears on. And hey, it's a Saturday night, so they're probably partying and having a good time before hitting the road, right? Just hope they don't wreck. I don't know. I heard a couple that sped by a moment ago. Because I'm here on an access road that you shouldn't really be going as fast as some of these people are going down it. Anyway, I'm just being paranoid. But yeah, as time wears on, the comet's getting lower in the sky, and I think it's getting a little harder to see in the images now. Oh, good grief. Sky Safari Pro on my phone just crashed. I'll load it up again. What the altitude is over the horizon now. So it should be about 6¼ degrees above the horizon. So getting quite low. I mean, I can tell just visually by naked eye that Mars is getting really, really low on the horizon. So we don't have a huge amount of time left, unfortunately. And of course, the quality of the view is also going to deteriorate in terms of seeing the comet. As it gets lower on the horizon, you're looking through more and more atmosphere, and it's going to make it dimmer. It's called atmospheric attenuation or atmospheric extinction. And it's the same thing that happens, of course, with the sunset. You can see the sun without blinding yourself, although you shouldn't stare at the sun. But you can see it, easier at sunset. So yeah, the same thing happens with the comet, and so we're starting to lose it a little bit, but just keep following as long as I can. And again, all these images are being saved to the hard drive, and of course, the video itself will be immediately available as a replay after we're done. It'll just be on the same link that you're currently viewing. And I'll stack the images and process them when I can get around to it. I'm figuring that'll probably be Monday, maybe Sunday night or something. I don't know. See how it goes. I'd like to get it out there as quickly as possible, though, because I do think it'll be quite beautiful once it's stacked. Not the best. I know there are going to be some amazing images of this coming out in the next couple days, but yeah, mainly the cool thing here is you're able to see it happening live, in real time. Wow, okay, so somebody out there sent me a message. Sorry, I'm getting kind of trying not to get emotional. It sent me a message. Anyway, they bought a star, and I guess it's named for a loved one who's passed on now, and they'd like to have a picture of it. So yeah, go ahead, send me the coordinates, and if I can, I'll take a picture. I can't guarantee I'll be able to see it. Depends on where it is in the sky. If it's a southern hemisphere star, I'm not really going to be able to see it most likely. I mean, we are looking here at negative 24 degrees declination. That's not a problem, but past a certain point, I can't see it. And then, of course, it also depends on what season it's visible in. If it's too close to the sun right now, we can't see it, so we might have to wait up to, I don't know, 3 or 4 months before it really becomes easily visible. All depends on what magnitude it is and everything else. But chances are, yes, I can image that. So yeah, send me the coordinates, and I'll try to get a picture of that for you if at all possible. In fact, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but for a while I'd kind of been batting the idea around in my head that I could start a small business, or at least make some money on the side by selling people pictures of the stars that they buy or whatever. And yes, I know it's not used by those names aren't used by scientific organizations, whatever. It's not really official by the IAU or anything else. But, they're meaningful to people, these things. And I'm like, probably make some money by selling pictures, because I bet they can give them pictures of their stars when they send it to them. But then I realized that's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. I enjoy doing this for free. I enjoy doing this for fun. When it starts to become about money, when it starts to become a thing where I'm trying to make money off of it, it starts to take the fun away. And in addition, people start to have a certain level of expectation of performance. If they don't see, and I swear to God, I've had this happen, if they don't see Hubble Space Telescope quality pictures, they get upset. Some of them. I used to work at a public observatory. I volunteered at the University Observatory when I was in college, and I also worked at a public observatory where you had to pay to come up and see stuff. And occasionally people would get furious because it didn't look like Hubble Space Telescope. Hey, check it out, we got a plane. Plane just flew through the field of view. You can see the strobe lights here. That's cool. You can see, so this is one of the navigation lights here. And occasionally it flashes with a strobe, and so you get little pulsations within the line. So anyway, as I was saying, it's different when you start to get money involved, and I don't want to. I just don't. I do this because I enjoy it and I enjoy sharing it, so I do it for free. But I mean, occasionally, occasionally I'll be approached to sell the rights to use an image in a commercial production or something. I don't seek that out, but if someone comes to me and wants to pay me for the use of my image, I'm not going to turn the money down, but, it's not what I'm looking to do. I don't want to try to turn my scope into a piggy bank. Just because then then it's a job. It's not just a hobby. For me, it's all about just the enjoyment of sharing it. So yeah, that plane flew right through the field of view. Cool stuff. Yeah, so as we get lower on the horizon, those sorts of events tend to become more likely. You're looking out over more atmosphere, you're looking lower over the horizon, so it's more likely some plane in the distance will happen to pass through. Wow, so we're really starting to lose the comet. In fact, my goodness, did something just happen to the tracking, or is it just me? Yeah. So okay, we're losing the guide star. It's getting so dim, it's becoming difficult for the autoguider to see the guide star, and so it's having trouble keeping it centered because it can't really tell where it is in the autoguiding picture. So that shot got blurred simply because of the guiding issue. So I've now cranked up the guiding exposures up to 6 seconds. We've got the guide star back. It's going to blur this picture too, because it had to move it back to center it. So we're getting down into the grass here. Yeah, the comet's the sort of blurred out thing right here. I tell you what. Okay, so we've got less than half an hour before the comet and Mars set on the horizon. Somebody asked me for non-overexposed pictures of Mars if possible. Of course, this is a wide field of view here, so we're not going to see any detail in Mars per se, but we can at least take a look at a faster exposure. So maybe after this picture and then one more, if I can get one more out of it, we'll go to fast exposures and just take a look at Mars with a non-overexposed view, just so you can see what that looks like for comparison. At least, give you some idea of the scale of this. Because Mars is overexposed here, this is probably exaggerating the size of the planet a bit, because you're completely saturating the detector on these pixels, and so they're just bright, solid white. But yeah, anyway, so I guarantee you this next picture is going to be blurred to some extent. Simply because of that auto-guiding issue just now. So it didn't really occur to me that I didn't even think about how atmospheric dimming was going to start affecting the guide star. It was a pretty solid detection earlier, but of course, as we're getting lower over the horizon here, the guide star is getting dimmer, and now, yeah, the scope had some issue. The camera had some issue trying to detect it and see exactly where it was. Yeesh, even now I think it's still having issues. Yeah, we'll see what happens here. Yeah, it's a little blurred, but maybe not quite as bad as the last one. It's really becoming difficult to see the comet in these pictures, though, compared to earlier. Before it was real clear, you know, but now it's kind of tricky. And I don't know why it's doing that. Stop that. There we go. So the comet's in the white box here. It's kind of this faint smudge. But as I said, you know, it's getting much harder to see it now that we're only a few degrees above the horizon. Even Mars is becoming more difficult. I wouldn't say it's difficult to see by eye, but it's clearly not as bright as it was. So chances are I probably won't use these last few pictures for stacking. I just don't think they're going to add anything but noise. But yeah, after this picture, assuming it comes out okay, we'll do just a few more pictures of Mars by itself, sort of, in the sense that we're gonna reduce the exposure so we're not overexposing Mars, and in doing so, we're gonna completely lose sight of the comet. But just so you can see what that looks like, hopefully the atmosphere will have dimmed it to the point that we can avoid overexposing Mars, because with this wide field refractor, it's optically very fast, meaning the F ratio is quite low. I forget exactly what it is, 4 or 5 maybe. It's a pretty fast F ratio, and this camera is extremely sensitive. And so I've had issues in the past with this thing where it seemed like no matter what I did, I couldn't get it going fast enough that it didn't overexpose Mars at least a little bit. But I think now that Mars is so low over the horizon, that might not be an issue, because Mars has been dimmed too. But it's good. We've got 28 pictures here going on 29, and I think probably at least 25 of those are going to be usable for stacking. That's a good number. The other issue is I'm going to try to have to get a flat field image here somehow. Probably point to one of these light pollution domes directly and just see if I can get a decent flat field. It's not exactly your high quality flat field method, but it'll work. I've done it before anyway. So yeah, the comet is basically all but gone now. It's right there, and the atmosphere has just dimmed it to such an extent that you really can't even hardly see it. And the guider's gone crazy again because it's losing the guide star again. It's just dimming, dimming, dimming faster and faster. So we're losing that. That's fine. Turn off autosave here. Call this Mars. On. Say 0. Alright, so now we're just going to take a look at Mars itself without the ridiculously long exposures. Oh, it's still taking that last image. Stop. And let's just see what it looks like here. don't know if this is still going to be too long an exposure or too short or what. We'll just play with it here and find out. Yeah, it's okay. You can see there's Mars. It's practically a single pixel, just a few pixels. This is, you know, a wide field refractor, so with this wide field refractor, you really can't resolve any detail on Mars, especially because Mars is not exactly at opposition right now, not even close. Tiny speck. And of course, you can't see the comet at all now, or any of the stars that we saw before. And that's why we were doing those long exposures. But yeah, there's Mars. Just a little star-like object in the center there. So tomorrow night, we'll do this again. I'll be webcasting with the main telescope, the 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. It'll be just a few hours after closest approach of the comet to Mars. And so they'll actually be closer together, and that will allow it to fit in the field of view of the main telescope. And so we'll take a closer look at the comet and Mars tomorrow night, provided the weather's good. So I think it's a little about do it. Really more to be seen. We've lost sight of the comet now simply because of how low it is on the horizon. The atmosphere has gotten so thick now that you can't really see it. I'd have to crank up the exposure even more, and the problem with that is the guide star that we were using. It's too dim to be properly detected, so that the camera's driving the telescope all over the place instead, trying to keep it centered, and it's not really working. So bottom line, that's about as far as I can follow it. Out of curiosity, let's find out what the final altitude was over the horizon. So right now, come on, don't walk up, don't walk up. The comet is only almost 3 degrees, 2 degrees 50 arc minutes. So just a little less than 3 degrees above the horizon. Not too bad, not too bad. Sky Safari Pro predicts its magnitude was 11.5. JPL says about 10, but observers have been reporting around 12 or 13, I think. So pretty dim, pretty dim. Even Mars now by eye looks pretty dim. But there's not much more to be seen from this site. This is actually, we're under a fair bit of light pollution here. This site was chosen not for the light pollution properties, but for the clear view of the western sky. My normal observing site, the western sky, is pretty obscured below about 30 degrees or so, and that just wasn't going to work for this. So it's going to do it for tonight. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'll be processing the images we took, and I'll post that in the video description at some point. Again, that might not happen until about Monday, but tomorrow night at about the same time, 8:30, I'll be back out here, if the weather's good, and webcasting again the departure of Comet Siding Spring from Mars. So tune back in, and I hope to see you then. Have a good night.